Hello everyone, today we've got a review of Miracle Snack Shop, specifically the Nintendo Switch version. This was written by the legend that is Mirin. He's going to run his critical eye over it to see what it's all about. Before we do, subscribe, hit that bell button. If you enjoy visual novels, it will be the best thing you do today. Unless you buy a cake or something, then fair enough. Tailshop is one of those developers that have been steadily releasing visual novels for the past decade, mostly focusing on mobile platforms but also porting them to PC and consoles. However, so far they haven't received what one would call a big following here in the West. The game we will be taking a look at today, Miracle Snack Shop, is one of their latest release ones, but will this truly be the tasty appetizer it sets out to be? The plot centers on the 30-year-old Seolwha Cha. When confronting the parents of the now nowhere to be found ex-friend, he receives ownership of a small local restaurant that focuses on serving shaved ice, which used to be run by the friend's father. It doesn't take long for Seolwha to realize there's something fishy going on here, as the few eerie rumors surrounding the venue he heard aren't that far off the mark. A few months after starting, he discovers a mysterious portal hiding in the corner of the attic living space, and one day, a girl clad in strange clothing pops out of it. Judging from her attire and how she struggles to speak Korean, it's clear to Seolwha that she might come from a different dimension. Eventually, she gets a basic grasp of the language and presents herself as Queen Salt, hinting at her royal status, although her actual name is Philia. Seolwha offers her a dish of shaved ice, and after seeing her greatly hesitate, Seolwha loses patience and sticks the spoon into her mouth. But she does take a liking to the dessert and decides to drop by out of the portal every now and then so she can eat more of it. The premise of the plot is your typical fish out of water story, where she is forced into situations she's not used to and has to slowly adapt to this new environment presented to her. It's definitely not the most original type of story, but as a narrative, it simply works, and the game does make a good use of it to create fun situations between the two. The way their relationship builds up is also quite organic, even if Seolwha isn't exactly the most interesting protagonist out there. Later on, Mira makes an appearance as the second main heroine of this game. She's a YouTuber of sorts that's trying to find her next big hit, and somehow takes a liking to Seolwha and his small restaurant and decides to promote it on social media. Compared to Philia, Mira as a character is a bit more uninhibited and whimsical, often causing Seolwha unwanted troubles. I did, however, feel that the chemistry between the two didn't work as well as it did with Philia. Mira comes across as someone with a really strong type of personality, unlike Seolwha, who is honestly rather spineless, so he would often mindlessly obey anything she demanded from him, which at times got frustrating. I think the game's biggest missed opportunity though is the fact that these two main heroines never interact with each other, as in they don't share a single scene together at all. This is a bit baffling considering how well their contrasting personalities would work. Instead, the game just opts for two completely separate storylines, which while not exactly bad per se, does feel like wasted potential. That being said, the game more or less makes up for it by decently expanding Philia's storyline thanks to the inclusion of her after-story chapter. This was originally separate paid DLC, but the Switch version has it included in the base game. I found it quite surprising that this wasn't part of the original game considering how important it is plot-wise. This chapter actually tries to tie all endings, both good and bad, and gives them a proper closing. I appreciate how thorough it tries to be, taking into consideration all outcomes of the story instead of just one, but I say tries to be, because if you stop and think about the story beats here, you'll quickly realize there's a few obvious plot holes. Still, it's a lot more than what I was initially expecting. I was fully convinced the game would drop its supernatural elements and say, screw it, and leave them completely unexplained. But instead, this chapter felt like a solid conclusion to the story. As previously mentioned, the game also includes a management sim gameplay portion to it. These segments take place between story scenes where you will be presented a menu with a few tabs to navigate. As for the actual gameplay system, simply put, they are incredibly simplistic. There's only two factors you need to worry about, the food's quality and the store's popularity, and you increase those by buying newer recipes and spending money on promoting the store respectively. That's it. From time to time you might receive quote-unquote quests to improve your reviews, but these just amount to buying some food recipes. I believe the quest givers are actually chibi references to older titles of this developer, such as The Fox Awaits Me or My Girlfriend is a Mermaid, but I have no experience with those games, so those references were lost on me. On a positive note, the simplistic nature to it means that replaying the game isn't too much of a chore, and you will need to replay it if you want to 100% it, since Mira's requirements for her ending are almost impossible to achieve on your first run. How it works is that after clearing the game once and starting the game anew, you receive some bonus extra buffs that will increase your stats and make you gain money more easily. These bonuses are pretty much required if you wish to unlock a couple of endings, but fortunately replaying the game from scratch while skipping previously seen scenes only takes perhaps around 10 minutes, so it's not a big deal at all. As for the presentation, the game looks really great. It boasts a gorgeous art style with some truly high quality CGs. Yes, it's horny, but that's also part of its appeal. I do think that perhaps those CGs could have been a little more evenly distributed, since you get most of them in a row during the final stretch of their stories, but that's a minor nitpick. With regards to the audio design, however, it was, to be honest, rather odd. The game uses some sound effects mid-conversation that I believe are meant to be cues whenever there's a quip or a punchline of a joke, kind of like a laugh track I guess, but they are used so often that they are just distracting. Thankfully, you can turn all sound effects off in the options menu, and I recommend you do so. Your experience with the game will be much better. Another thing I would recommend doing in the options menu is changing the dub from Korean to Japanese. Look, I don't really understand Korean, so it's not like I can give a fair assessment to their voice acting, but I did find the Japanese voices more energetic and enjoyable. They also sound objectively better as far as actual sound quality goes. For some reason, the Korean dub was oddly compressed and not as clear as the Japanese one. Looking at value, when comparing it to the Steam price tag, you can see the Switch tax is unfortunately present, but honestly it's not as bad as it may seem. I was expecting to be done with this game in a little over 5 hours, but if you wish to see all it has to offer, its actual length is closer to 10 hours, so I feel the price is still somewhat reasonable, all things considered. There's a physical version of this available, exclusive to PlayAsia, a standard edition, as well as a limited collector's edition which offers nice value for the contents including acrylic standees and soundtrack. If you want to order a copy that's shipping in November, consider checking the links in the description and the pinned comment. If you order with our links, you also support VN Paradise at the same time, and we thank you greatly. To conclude, I personally had a fairly decent time with Miracle Snack Shop. Truth be told, outside of Philia's massive airbags, there was frankly nothing particularly impressive about it, and I also feel the story could have benefited from scenes where the two heroines interacted with each other, but still, the game does make good use of its premise to deliver some enjoyable and fluffy scenes, just like a mid-afternoon snack. It might not be a proper substitute for a full meal, but if you munch on this one, it will probably hit the right spot. A 6.5 out of 10. Thanks to Mirin for writing this as always. Check him out on Twitter, he has high standards for VN, so if you need the creme de la creme, he's the man for you. Also watch some of our other stuff, and if you want to order this physically, please consider using the links in the description.